Welcome to Mindful Living with Neil, the podcast where we explore the world of mental health, spirituality, personal growth, and mindfulness. I am your host, Dr. Neil Shah, a psychiatrist and a mindfulness coach on a mission to transform the mental health of 1 million people on this planet using techniques from modern psychology and the timeless wisdom of ancient mindfulness. In each episode, we'll bring you practical tools, inspiring conversations, and insights from industry experts. So, if you are someone looking for solutions to your mental health challenges, seeking spiritual growth, or have the desire to live a well balanced and holistic life, this is the right place for you. So, let's begin this journey together towards a happier and healthier you, one mindful step at a time. Did you know that the divorce rates in India are rising at an alarming high rate? But why are couples in India not able to stay together for a long time? In this episode, we'll dive deep into the root causes of relationship breakdowns and the steps you can take to overcome these challenges so you can build conscious, happy, and meaningful relationships. So, this first episode of the podcast and the guest which we have invited is very special for me because 3 years back, personally, I was facing many relationship issues and struggles, and I tried everything, but nothing seemed to work. Then I stumbled upon the work of my guest, and my life completely transformed. I started looking at myself in a different way, and I also understood why my relationships were not working. So today, I'm honored to welcome our guest, Martin Ucik, an integral relationship coach, author, and trainer who is on a mission to support singles and couples to build happy and healthy relationships so that we can create a better world. Martin is the author of 3 best-selling books: Integral Relationships, A Manual for Men, Sex, Love and Purpose, and Integral Relationship Practice, a manual for singles and couples. Since 2011, Martin has been conducting live experiential relationship workshops throughout the world and has helped tens and thousands of couples overcome their various relationship issues and challenges. Since 2020, Martin has started offering online sessions via Zoom and also offers private one-to-one consultation. So please welcome our guest for today, Martin Ucik. So, hey Martin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, great. So, Martin, currently where are you?
I am in Hua Hin in Thailand, where I'm retiring right now, playing golf and music and enjoying my life mainly.
Wow, great. Golf and music. Yeah, love it. So, Martin, can we start this podcast? I have some wonderful questions for you.
Yeah, okay.
So, Martin, can you share your journey of becoming an integral relationship coach?
Yes, I can. So
Yeah.
I was born in Germany
Mhm.
and was married twice to German women. And in 1995, I moved with my second wife to California. We have 3 children together.
Mhm.
And in 2000, I was introduced to Eckhart Tolle, the spiritual teacher. Before he was really famous, I had the opportunity to meet him a few times. And I became what we may call a New Age guy. I got really interested in all the New Age stuff in Northern California. And that eventually led me to seek a deeper connection that my wife at the time was available for. And we separated and then later divorced very amicably, thankfully. And I started to date Northern Californian women and was just really flabbergasted what demands they had on me and men in general. And some of them were really helpful and suggested some books and some workshops and some other information and helped me in becoming a better man. But the relationships still were very chaotic, and was not only me, it was also other people who really struggled. And so I started to read relationship books and got really interested in that subject. And then in 2006, I was introduced to Ken Wilber's integral model through the Cosmic Consciousness CD set, 10 CDs. And I was just like amazed at the depth and complexity and span of what Ken integrated in his model. And about 9 months later, I wondered if there would be a integral relationship book. I thought that would be brilliant, but it didn't exist. And so I spent 4 years writing Integral Relationships, a manual for men,
Mhm.
which eventually Ken got a copy and emailed
Mhm.
me and said, it's an amazing book. I never seen anything like it. Can we do an interview? And I want you to visit me. And so Ken really helped me to become, to launch my work in the worldwide integral community, which eventually got me invited to, I don't know, 15, 20 different countries around the
Wow.
world to do workshops. And that eventually then led me to an invitation to Turkey after I had finished my second book, which was in 2018. And I really liked Istanbul and the people there liked me. And so I went back there to teach more and to live there for
Mhm.
a while. And then COVID hit
Mhm.
and I was happily stuck there, I would say. And I developed the online training, which also how we met.
Yeah.
And that I think 360 people or so participated in this online training over the years in from 35 countries. And then the training material that I developed together with the participants then became my third book,
Oh,
Integral Relationship Practice.
yeah.
And so that's how and here we are, right?
Yeah, great. So, Martin, that was absolutely an amazing story, like really inspiring. So, Martin, there are many relationship books available in the market. Yeah.
Yes.
So, how does the integral relationship model differ from the traditional relationship models?
Yeah, so the big difference is that it is developmentally oriented. It looks how human develop in different lines of development that we can
Okay.
talk about.
Mhm.
And so the integral relationship model or the integral model in general is about learning. And
Mhm.
in my case, in relationship case, learning about all the facets of relationships. So
Okay.
my house eventually burned down in California, but up to that point, I had about 350 relationship books that I
Mm.
attempted to integrate into that model. And so you learn about the important facets. So that's the learn and then heal, that we heal in our relationships. And 2 years ago, I became a certified NARM trauma-informed
Mm.
professional. So I use this neuroaffective relational method, and I think that's really the best method for dealing with childhood trauma and relationship
Mhm.
conflict that's based in psychological wounds. And then
Mm.
the third aspect, so it's a learn, heal, and then the third one is to grow. And growth in what I integrated is in consciousness, in spiritual development, sexual development, anima animus complex development. There are other developmental lines, let's say
Mhm.
mathematical, but that's not so important for relationships, right?
Relationships.
So to grow and then to awaken. So that has to do with states of spiritual realization and how we can make them into stages.
Mhm.
And this awakening process goes through, it comes from Wilber and of
Mm.
course people he drew from, basically through the gross, the material, the subtle, mental, the causal, emotional, experiential, and
Mhm.
the pure witness and the non-dual. So
Yeah.
there's five stages. So that makes a difference that couples in integral relationships, they're aware of that map and they learn, heal, grow, and awaken together, and also share a purpose that is bigger than either individual, that they come together in that purpose to
Mm.
make the world a better place by creating more beauty, more truth, more goodness, and more functionality. So that's
Wow.
the big four, the perennial philosophy from Plato, the good, the true, the
Mhm.
beautiful, and we added the functional or practical to these three.
So we could say that it's the most comprehensive model of relationship available on the planet, like integrating the best from all the relationship models. Yeah.
I would
And
say
like
so.
I have studied your books and it's absolutely fascinating and has completely changed my life. So Martin, you said that you have been doing this relationship workshop since 2011. So I'm sure that you have worked with hundreds and thousands of couples. So
Yes.
what are the most common problems and challenges that couples who come to you face in their relationship?
So the most common problem is that they are at different levels of development. We already talked about these different developmental lines, and they're not aware that they are at these different levels. And they kind of wonder, what's wrong with you, right? Why don't you understand me? Or why are you so different? And there's often blame, right, involved in it. And specifically, if males get blamed or feel that they get blamed, they go into shame and then withdraw from the relationship, which creates fear in the female. And they go down what's called the fear shame downward spiral. So that's something I often have to work with first, right? So that both partners then open up to hearing and learning about what these different levels of development entail and how, we together in the workshop, or if I do one-on-one or work with couples, to find out what levels they are at and what are the contributions, right? Every level has to contribute something, and what are the limitations, and to see if the couple somehow can work out different roles in the relationship where each of one can contribute their strengths to the relationship, but also give each other the freedom to explore certain things on their own. Like in my own example, my wife was not interested in spirituality and in learning and healing and growing, but she was okay that I went to the Center for Spiritual Living in Santa Rosa and was a musician there and a Power of Now group leader. But eventually, in our case, it was just too painful for me that I wasn't with a partner who was sharing my enthusiasm for this new world. And so I have some couples, there is also, they realize they have grown apart. And often when people say we grew apart, they think like we grew apart like this. But in reality, they grew apart like this. One was developing faster than the other, or they were never at the same level to begin with, but they didn't know that.
Okay.
So I would say that's the biggest part.
So if
And I
couples,
say, there are many therapists, right? And so often they go to couples therapy, but the therapists are usually not trained about these different levels of development. And so, they then wonder, why do they have such a difficult to express their feelings, for example, or why are their values or their needs so different? And why can simple therapy not overcome that?
so Martin, that was a completely new thing for us and our audiences. Like many people talk about the skills which are needed in a relationship, but very few people talk about the levels of development. So
Yes.
even if we develop the skills, but according to your model, if a person is at a different developmental level, then it becomes very difficult to have a harmonious relationship. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
You see, and in the past, people usually they met, let's say, in a religious group or at work or in a gang, right? And so they were usually automatically meeting people who were at their level of development, let's say in a university, right? But nowadays, a lot of people date online, right?
Yeah.
There is no online profile that says, oh, I'm at stage 5 in this development line, et cetera, right? Everybody just looks at the pictures and how much money the guy make and what kind of car he has, right? And then they get together and they fall in love. And then when these love hormones wear off, then they realize, oh, we're just very different. Why did we never realize that in the beginning, right? But
Yeah.
that's what the love hormones do. They make us somewhat blind, right, to
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, this is what happens in India. Like in India, we have those traditional families. So we look only at the profession of the person, the city in which he stays, and the amount of money which he is making, and his material possessions. But
Yeah,
like those deep internal factors which you mentioned, nobody thinks about those.
yeah,
So, like, it's a completely new thing for all of us. Martin, that's absolutely great, amazing. So, Martin, many of my friends and clients, they come to me and they tell me that they are attracted to this one person, that one male or female, and
mm,
then they enter into a relationship. But after entering into that relationship, they realize that like this was not the right person for me. I just
yeah,
got attracted by the looks, but when I am in that relationship, I'm not actually enjoying it. So
yeah.
what are some of the red flag signs which people can look for when they enter into a relationship with a partner.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to say that this sexual physical attraction, right, and even the attraction to wealth in a man, right, and the sexy body of a woman, is plays a very important role. So we should not
Okay.
discount that, and it indicates to us that our genetic material is compatible, through pheromones and looks and different things like that, and that we can make healthy babies. Of course, now a lot of people don't even want to have children, but the biological part in the brain, right, still does that. So I don't want to discount that, right? So
Okay.
that's a good thing. And so I use Robert Sternberg's triangular theory of love. So it's a triangle, right? And on one side of the triangle, we have the sexual passion, right? The falling in love part.
Okay.
And that's one part, and that's important. And on the other side of the triangle is what we call intimacy. And that can be broken down into me, you see. And intimacy means that we have shared values, right? That we have shared interests, that we have similar love languages, for example, that how we give and receive love is similar. And we often don't ask these questions, right? What do you feel most passionate about? What do you feel most concerned about? What are the 5 most important values that you would like to share in your relationship? What needs do you expect me to fulfill for you in the relationship, and what needs do I expect to have fulfilled? If people would have more of these conversations, and really my first book is full with questions, right? How we can establish if there is intimacy. For example, how do you respond when you get angry? How do you respond when you get triggered? Or I also have like 5 questions that are really good, I think. What attracted you to your former partner? Assuming that people already had dated, right? Why did the relationship end? Who ended it? What did you learn from the ending? And what do you want to do different in the future? And some people say, oh, I don't want to talk about my past relationships. So these are the people who just go from one relationship to the next. They never learn anything. And they're also not capable of intimacy, right? Because they don't want you to know. I don't allow you to see into me, right? There's other people, they go on and on and on and blame everybody and their partner and their parents. It's never their fault. It's everybody else's fault. That's also somebody you don't want to get together with, right? And you want to get together with someone who can reflect and say, yes, I was attracted and then this is what I learned and this is what I want to do different in the future, right? Now you see there is a person who wants to learn, heal, grow, and awaken in their relationship. So that's the intimacy part. And I could go on and on and on about how you look. And then at the bottom of the triangle is commitment. So what is the level and willingness of this person to commit, right? Is this a short-term fling, right? Or is it until we find somebody better, or is it until we no longer love each other? What level of capacity does somebody have for commitment? And again, looking a little bit at relationship history and maybe even the parents, right? Because often the parents have an impact on the ability and the woundedness of people. And this commitment, I go from, and also how much can we depend on the other person? So we use the word dependence in a positive way, right? From codependence to dependence,
Dependence.
to independence, to interdependence, to interbeing, to interbecoming. And the people who are highly independent, they usually have the least amount of commitment capacity. So when I read a dating profile or I listen to somebody and they go like, yeah, I'm a very independent person and I go my own way and and I want somebody who supports me in my path. They have very little to say about what they contribute to the relationship, right? They only talk about what they want to get out of the relationship, right? And then when I say, well, what do you contribute to the relationship? What do you mean contribute? I know what I want, and I deserve to get 100% of what I want. So these are the people who haven't learned really to co-create with a partner and to
Mhm.
to stay in the relationship based on the shared interest and values and passion and contribution,
Wow.
what they want to do, right? What is the purpose of our relationship? Where
Mhm.
do we want to go as a couple? And what is our commitment to that path and to the other person?
Wow.
So that's, you see, that has nothing to do with sexual attraction. Everything I
Mhm.
said after that,
Yeah.
right? That's what
Yeah.
you want to focus on. And if somebody doesn't want to talk about these things, then you may still enjoy, the love hormones and the sex and everything, but don't fall in love too deeply because I can
Mhm.
guarantee you this will not last.
So, Martin, this was very insightful. The questions which you told and the triangle which you mentioned, like it will really help our audience when they go out to look for a healthy relationship. So, that was
Yeah.
absolutely great and
And I want to
amazing.
say also, people ask me, on which date do you ask these questions? I go like,
Yeah.
before the first date, why do you, I mean, sure, if you want to go out for fun, right? But if you're seriously looking, you ask these questions online if you date online or go whatever, before you go out, at least a few of them. Because somebody who's really serious in finding a partner, they will say, wow, that's really great. I see you're really serious and interested and I like it, right? The people who say, too many questions, what kind of weird or
Yeah.
nerd are you, right? They're the ones they will never want to answer these
Answer
questions.
true. Yeah, that's true. Amazing, Martin. Amazing. So, Martin, like in recent years, there is an interesting shift which is happening in India. Like India is moving from more traditional values to modern values.
Mhm.
And because of that, the females have started going out of home and started to work. Okay. So
Yes,
many men come to me and complain that after the females have started going out to work, they are not able to pay that much attention to their household chores and to their children and the family
yeah,
values and the things which they have to do in their family. So, what
yes.
advice do you have for females who want to balance pursuing their goals at the same time balancing their family life?
What do I suggest to the females?
Yeah.
Oh,
How can they balance their pursuit for goals
well,
and how can they balance their
they,
family life?
I mean, they simply need a man who is evolved enough not to feel threatened by that and supports their female partner in finding this work family balance by also contributing, to raising the children and doing the homework. And that is a huge problem, right? Because, I grew up in a family where my mother never had an outside job. Her job was to raise the children and to care for the home and for my father. And
Okay.
so my mother couldn't basically leave the relationship. It's probably the traditional relationship, or she would have had to go back to her parents, her family, right? And so we men felt very secure as long as we were the only breadwinners. And now we have to deal with this situation that a lot of women say, I no longer need a man, right? I want a man, but I no longer need him. And
Need a
that
man.
feels very scary I mean, I was at that point and said, how can I know that she will stay or what is the value that I contribute to this relationship? To my wives, it was the money that I made because they were full-time homemakers. But then the women I dated, they all had jobs and they often had much more money than I did. So there is a book called The All or Nothing Marriage by Ellie Finkel, who
Okay.
is a little bit behind, right? But he says, well, couples, they want to develop in their relationship. They want to become better persons, and that's often the females who have more interest in that. The new training that we're starting right now, we have more
Yeah.
men than women, which is really interesting, right? So men, I think, slowly are catching
Catch.
on, and so for a woman, it's just to find one of the men, right, who have done some work and can answer these questions about intimacy, and that the couple says, what is the purpose of our relationship beyond family and children?
Children.
Do we have a purpose, right? Or just going on cruises? That's not a purpose, right? That's an activity. Is there something where we want to develop as humans? Do we want to contribute something? And what do we want to contribute? Right? So looking at
Yeah.
each other. So when Bill and Melinda Gates announced their divorce, they said, Melinda specifically said, we can no longer grow together. So to have this, I'm sounding now like a broken record, right? to find someone who wants to learn, heal, grow together, and to have some kind of shared purpose that
Mm.
contributes to society. Can be
Okay.
the community or can be the whole world, right?
Mm.
When we leave this planet, what do we want to know as a couple, what we uniquely contributed to make the
The
world a
world.
better place?
Yeah. Mm.
And then it's much easier, right, to share household chores and the raising and finding this
Mm.
work-life balance.
That's great, Martin. So this was a really helpful piece of advice for all the females who are struggling with this issue. So Martin, in recent years, like many clients and couples, they are coming to me and the divorce rates in India are rising at an alarming high rate.
Mhm.
So in the past few years, this has been happening. So in your experience, what are the most common causes for separation or divorce among couples? Like why do they separate or why do they get a divorce?
So the first we already talked about that people get together just on passion, right? And
Okay.
they don't have a shared purpose for the
Mm,
relationship. And the second reason, and I don't know India so well, but
mm,
in the Western world, is that women go into what we call their animus complex stage 4.
okay.
So there are very interesting books like Female Authority and In a Different Voice by Carol Gilligan and
Mm,
others. But these are the two big books. For me as a man was really shocking to realize that women still grow up in so like a male created world, right? Still
mm,
most of the politicians, industrial leaders, and spiritual teachers and self-help teachers, right, are men. So for us men, that's kind of like hard to
mhm,
feel into, is that women often question their interior experience based on male reflection. They kind of look to males and go like, is this normal what I feel? And, you know, and am I pretty enough in these things?
mhm,
And at its stage 4, women realize that and they say, I need to find out who I am independent of this male reflection, right? Which is father, brothers,
mm,
teachers, boyfriends, husband, right? There's all these males
mm,
and they want to find out who they are independently, and they cannot do that while they're in the relationship. That's
mm,
why one reason why 70% of divorces in the West at least are initiated by women. There's other
mm.
factors like the unhappiness about sharing household chores and things like that.
Okay.
But that is really a big reason.
Yeah, Martin,
And
that was.
and so
Mm,
to overcome that is to bring awareness into this anima animus that the men also go
mhm,
through 5 stages. And yeah, that's one reason.
mm,
The other one is the fear, shame, downward spiral unconsciously. I already talked about that. And the third reason is that they have no more shared, maybe they didn't have a shared purpose to begin with. The purpose was served and they move on to something else.
okay.
So many, many reasons. And then, of course, people being at different levels of development.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that was great, Martin. It was very insightful.
and of course, you're now integrally informed, right? So you really
Yeah.
help people in doing this deeper analysis.
Mhm,
And of course, also the healing work is important that both
mm.
partners are willing to deal with their childhood
With the
trauma.
childhood traumas. Yeah. So, Martin, like in the last few years, many couples are coming to me and they are very disturbed by this one thing. When they find out that their partner is having an extramarital affair or is cheating on them. Okay.
Yes.
So, according to you, what are the most common reasons why couples cheat on each other or betray each other or have an extramarital affair? What are the most common reasons for it?
So the first reason is again the fear, shame, downward spiral.
Okay.
So, you know, when people fall in love, the love hormones support their
Hmm.
sex life, and it's usually they wouldn't get together if it wouldn't be decent or
Hmm.
fairly good. And then as these romance hormones go away, usually the female try to get the man back to the romance phase. And the
Okay.
man hears that as complaining. And
Hmm.
he first tries to fix her, right? Or the problem that he thinks she has by not really seeing what she really wants. And then he withdraws in his cave. He no longer wants to hear all the complaining. And when he
Hmm.
comes back, he gets shamed and things like that. And
Hmm.
then eventually, if he has access, he may find another partner who kind of, you know, he feels the romantic feelings again for somebody else, and he becomes this really nice person who
Hmm.
listens and pays attention. And the other person may even say, "Oh, you know, you poor guy, what a terrible partner you have." And the same is with women, right? They then may also talk to other men and complain how bad their partner is and find sympathy. And that's when infidelity,
Hmm.
sexual and emotional infidelity happens.
Okay.
So this is what I always have to deal with first, or
Hmm.
mostly deal with first, because before I can do anything else. And other reasons why people cheat is because there are different levels of sexual development or have different love languages. Like if physical touch is your primary love language or your
Hmm.
secondary, and it's very low for your partner, which there's nothing wrong with that other person, right? Then you're just not compatible in your needs for physical connection and sex.
Okay.
And then there's 5 stages of sexual development. So if people are at different levels of sexual development, that may also be a
Hmm.
problem. Now,
Okay.
the reason why people cheat is because they often usually don't talk about their sexual desires with their partner and say,
Okay.
I really feel we're not intimate enough, or our sexuality is not as evolved or developed, blah, blah, blah. Or, there are psychological blocks for people not having a healthy sex life. And that's such a taboo subject that in our trainings and workshops, we spend a few
Hmm.
hours just to prepare people to open up, to have this conversation, and then give them a list of questions. And believe me, I had couples that were married for 30 years or somewhere in that neighborhood. And after they did this exercise, they said, we have never talked about this in our whole relationship.
Hmm.
We never talked
Hmm.
about our sexual desires. And for some couples, that's a real revelation, right? That they
Hmm.
so it's the not talking about it. And then once it happened, very often people are too quick then to say that's it, right?
Hmm.
And not to look at why did it happen? Why does that so feel so threatening, right? In the first place. California, there's a movement that started called polyamory. And I
Okay.
just happened to be really good friends with
Hmm.
a woman who became sort of like the third part in the relationship between a couple, where then the wife of the couple coined, her name is Morning Glory Ravenheart Cell, or Cell Ravenheart. Can look it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And they coined the term polyamory, that it is possible, even though it's a stretch for many people, right, to have maybe called open relationships, right? Or to
Okay.
open the relationship to other sexual partners. It's not something I really recommend. I'm
Hmm.
I'm more a person who suggests to go deep in
Hmm.
your sexuality and in your relationship, but there is something to be said, to deal with insecurities and shame and fear and
Hmm.
anxiety and things like that around sexuality.
Okay.
So it's a huge, huge subject,
Huge
right?
subject. Yeah.
But at the core is you need to talk about it. If you
Hmm.
don't talk about it, then it's more likely that you cheat, and then, it comes out, and then for most relationships it's too late. So you need
Hmm.
like a vaccine, right? You need
Hmm.
a prevention that it doesn't happen in the first place, or if it happens,
Happens.
it happens with consent, right? To
Okay.
say, I really, would like
Want
to
to.
open our relationship, and what are your fears, and are you okay with that?
Hmm.
Sometimes you may be surprised that your partner goes like, "Oh, I also wanted to talk to you about that, but I was afraid to bring it up," right?
Okay.
And if the other person says no, that is too
Then.
painful for me. I was
Hmm.
in a workshop once about
Hmm.
love and sexuality. It was a very sexual workshop. And there
Hmm.
was a man who said, I really wanted to come. And my wife finally gave me permission after years of her asking her. And I promised her to call her every few hours and check in with her and tell her what's going on. And he said that so people knew why he's leaving the room and making phone call. And on the first evening, he said, I talked now 3 times with my wife, and it's so painful for her that I am here, that I'm leaving, because my relationship with my wife is more important for me than to have this experience in this workshop.
Hmm.
Right? That really touched me, right? And
Hmm.
that's the commitment part,
Hmm.
where somebody says, my sexual longings to have sex with other people are not as important to be fulfilled than my commitment to my wife and my
Important.
family. But they talked about it. You see, they talked about it.
Hmm.
If they wouldn't have had that conversation, it would have been a very different outcome.
That was amazing, Martin, like golden nuggets and very insightful. And Martin, what I notice is that when couples get betrayed in their relationship, their
Yes.
trust completely gets shattered. So they are not able to trust their partner again, or they lose trust in the opposite sex. Like female starts telling that we cannot trust men, or men start telling that we cannot
Yeah.
trust females. So how can people who have faced betrayal rebuild trust in their partner or the opposite sex? Would you like to give some advice to such people?
Yeah. So there's a book by David Rico called Daring to Trust. And in
Hmm.
NARM, to maybe touch a little bit on NARM, they have what's called 5 adaptive survival styles.
Hmm.
And there are connection, attunement to needs and feelings, trust. That's the third one. And then autonomy and love, sexuality.
Hmm.
And some people, they did not have the opportunity to develop trust in themselves and others in their childhood. And
Okay.
so they develop what's called trust adaptive survival styles and shame and pride-based identifications.
Okay.
So when people have deep trust issues, and they feel betrayed, which is not really a feeling, it's a interpretation from a
Mhm.
communication standpoint, that and are not able, right, to deal with this perceived betrayal. Right?
Hmm.
The reason why they feel betrayed is often in the first place because they have distrust survival style.
Hmm.
There's no more curiosity, and they're so deeply wounded that all they can do is run away, right? Or in extreme cases, become violent towards their partner, right? And
Yeah.
even kill them, right? To think that a pain will go away. But the
Hmm.
pain of not being able to trust themselves and others is already in them.
In them.
So I flip that around and say, that's a wonderful opportunity for you, right? This betrayal, or what
Hmm.
you perceive as a betrayal,
Betrayal.
to heal your trust survival style of not being able to trust.
Hmm.
Once you heal that wound, right, then you can still decide
Hmm.
if you want to continue
Hmm.
the relationship or not. Because
Hmm.
if you don't deal with your trust wound and you end that relationship, you just take it into the next relationship, right? And it will eventually happen there too, that your partner does something that you will perceive as a betrayal.
Hmm.
Instead of then dealing, right, and be curious, oh, why did you go out with my best friend, right? And deal with your wound, then you will just walk around it your whole life with it.
Yeah.
And it goes a little bit into the sexual question, right? If
Hmm.
and into the intimacy. Couples who are really mature, they talk about issues if they, as they come up before they become even a real issue. So
Hmm.
John Gottman with the marriage lab, right? He found out the problem is not that couples are really fighting. It's often a problem that they're not fighting enough, which means
Okay.
they're not presencing
Hmm.
problems as they arise. The important difference is that can they, after the fighting, right, come up with some solutions and then
Hmm.
return to love, right?
Okay.
Is there repair? And is there
Hmm.
something, oh, we learned something, right? That's
Hmm.
interesting. And now we know how to be better. And now we love
Hmm.
each other even more. So once the perceived, I always say perceived, right, betrayal happened, there's already a lot of
Hmm.
fear, shame, spiral stuff or other things happened until this trigger
Yeah.
issue comes out.
Yeah.
I think every good therapist is good in dealing with that,
Yeah.
or NARM is specifically good in dealing with that.
Hmm. So, Martin, the last point
Don't
which you
run
made.
away from it. See
Hmm.
it as an opportunity to learn, to
Hmm.
heal, to grow, and to awaken.
Yeah.
Right? And then once you dealt with that, then you can still decide if you want to end the relationship. I'm
Yeah.
not saying stay in an abusive relationship or
Hmm.
stay in a relationship where your
Situation.
partner is really betraying you all the time or not
Hmm.
living up to agreements. So there I suggest that people do what has been called a marital imperative, or they make a shared vision, mission, value statement for
Hmm.
their relationship. Right? They said, these are the values that we agree on. Right? This is
Mm.
our shared purpose. This is who we want to be as a couple. And then they have sort of like a constitution for a country, right? Something
Mm.
they can refer to and say, oh, do you think you really lived up to that agreement that we made? Right? And then the other person would say, oh, no, I didn't, and I'm sorry. And if you don't have that in agreement, then it never talked about these things, then the other person may say, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know
Mm.
that's a problem for you.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So you
that's
need to have
true.
some kind of
Yeah,
written agreement,
agreement.
like
Mm.
wedding vows, right? Where people make vows and say, this is our shared values, this is the purpose of our relationship, this is who we are as a couple, and who we want to become as a couple. Right?
Mm.
That's what I call interbecoming. I love
Mm.
you for who you are, and I love you even more for who you can become and who we can become as a
Mm.
couple together.
Okay.
And these are the relationships that last.
So great, Martin. The last point which you made about conflicts. So personally, I have avoided conflicts in my relationships. Like I never confronted my partner or expressed my needs, and like it has led to a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
And many couples also feel that they should not confront each other, but rather behave in a passive aggressive way. But according to you, conflicts are necessary for healthy relationships. So
Yes.
that was really a
Well, and
golden
the
nugget for me.
resolution of the conflict is the important part,
Uh,
right? Not just
yeah,
the
yeah.
conflict, but how to
Mm.
resolve it. Go
So
ahead.
resolving it in a more mindful way, it's more important.
Yeah.
Okay. So Martin, we have our last question for this podcast. So many couples come to me and they tell me that when they get married, they have that spark, that intimacy, and that emotional connection for the first few months, which we call the
Yeah.
honeymoon period. But
Yes.
after a few months, that spark and intimacy, it starts to drop down
Mhm.
and they don't even feel like talking with each other or sharing some things with each other. So,
Yeah.
what is the reason for this decrease in spark and emotional intimacy after a period of time in married couples?
So our brain is basically designed to always look for new experiences.
Okay.
And we find that exciting, right? And
Mm,
falling in love is probably the most exciting experience, right?
mm,
And so there are some new pathways created in our brain. But then if the relationship goes into routine, right? So at the beginning, you do exciting things together. You go out on dates, you go
mm,
to places that you never went to, right? And you do things together that you probably never have done with another person in that
yeah,
way. But
yeah.
then you get into routine. And so one key aspect is to continue to create new exciting experiences together
Okay.
in the relationship. Like what
Mm,
I like to do was I call them surprise dates, where I
mm,
would make some arrangement as simple as go out to dinner and go to a movie, but not tell my partner, where we would go. Or once
wow.
I flew for our anniversary with my wife to Vegas, Las Vegas, where we got married and had the hotel booked and the show booked and the dinner in the rotating restaurant. And we spent a few days.
Mm,
Right? That was something that then we remembered. Right? It was a new experience together for us. And that's the problem, what specifically males. See,
mm,
our role is to get a woman pregnant. And that's what we call romance. And once we had sex with a woman and
mm,
theoretically got her pregnant, then we
mm,
go into our protector and provider role. We think it's enough if we bring home the
mm,
kill, right? Traditionally, we kill the animal, we bring it home, and the family has something to eat, right? Or the man brings home that paycheck.
mm.
And for 10 thousands of years, 100 thousands of years, that was enough because we were in survival mode. But this is no longer enough for modern and postmodern relationships.
Mm,
And so the expectation is that, we create ongoing romance and novel experiences.
mm,
And that when issues come up, that we talk about them and
mm.
learn from the conflict and heal from the conflict, because that also creates new. Bill and Melinda Gates said we can no longer grow together. Right? They felt there's no more new connections in our brains created together, maybe with other people, but we can no longer do it together.
Together.
That's why we want to go with other people. And it was with my wife too. she
Mm.
could not share my experiences in the spiritual and new age world. And I started to create these connections with other women. And that became so exciting for me that she got also more and more scared. This is the trick. It's very simple, but it usually takes the male to take the initiative to create these ongoing,
Mm.
interesting, unique
Yeah.
experiences. And they
Mm.
can be a little scary. Driving go-karts, right? Or something like that. It will say, oh, I don't want to do this, too dangerous, right? But that excitement creates, right, the adrenaline, and that's what we want to do. Jump out of an airplane or something.
Yeah.
Do exciting things together, nothing
Hmm.
boring, like
Yeah.
not a knitting class. That's not exciting enough. Right?
Yeah.
There needs to be some excitement.
Yeah.
Watch a
Mm.
scary movie together. That's exciting, not a romantic movie. Do
Great.
things that are exciting.
Yeah, so it's not a passive process. Like both the partners in the relationship have to put active efforts to reignite that spark. Yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
know your
amazing.
partner's love language.
Hmm.
I'm single, I'm dating, so I don't go on a date with anyone who didn't do the love language test first because
Hmm.
even if she doesn't share my love languages, at least I want to know what her love languages are. And so if gift is her highest love language, then I know I need to bring some little gift for the first date.
Okay.
Right? If touch is, then she wants to shake hands or maybe get a hug, right? Before we sit down.
So, Martin, like this was an amazing conversation which we had. Like, I also learned many things about relationships which I did not even know. And I'm sure that our audience has also learned many things and it has sparked new ideas in them which can help them to build more happy, conscious, and meaningful relationships. So, Martin, what final advice do you have for people who are still struggling in their relationships and want to build more fulfilling relationships? What final advice would you like to give them?
Read my books.
Yeah, that's the best advice I would give to anyone because it also completely changed my life after I read your books. Yeah.
But I would say, just my books are very big and very complex.
Yeah.
Seek help from people like you,
Hmm.
find professional help from somebody that you both resonate
Hmm.
with. That's just the most important part. And
Wow.
and look at your reservations of really opening yourself up, term called self-validating intimacy by David Schnarch, right? Have the courage overcome the fear of speaking your truth with your partner, and you will be surprised how open the other
Hmm.
person usually is if it really comes from your heart.
Wow.
Right? That's
Wow.
what you didn't see it, but I made this gesture. Not like speaking here, but speak from your heart. Learn to express feelings and
Yeah.
authentic needs, right?
Hmm.
Reveal who you are. It takes specifically for men, they often think if they become vulnerable, right? If they share something that's maybe not so glorious, that shows weakness, but that's not true. It
Hmm.
actually shows strength if a man
Yeah.
has the courage to really reveal himself with one caveat. Men always then have to say, and I know how to deal with that, right?
Hmm.
You're not saying, oh, I need your help to deal with my fears. You say, no, I know how to deal with my fears and I have this under control, but I wanted you to know, right, that I'm going through a bit of a hard time right now.
Hmm.
And that requires strength. And also for men to listen to their partner. There's a video called It's Not About the Nail. To listen to their partner and not hear it as a critique or a complaint towards themselves and go into shame or try to fix her, to just listen and to
Okay.
say, that sounds really hard and I
Hmm.
feel your pain. And if there's anything that I can support you with, let me know. But not say,
Hmm.
oh, do this and this and this, or I don't want to listen to that, or are you saying I'm not good enough, or I make you unhappy and all. No, just say, thank you for sharing this with me. It really touches me. Is there anything you need right now from me? And that's say, not fixing, right? So these are so like some basic things.
Wow. So, Martin, I'm sure that our audience was completely inspired by this conversation. So, if some people want to go deeper into your work, what resources can you share with them? Where can they start learning about this more?
Well, my website is
Hmm.
integralrelationship.com. And I'm retiring right now, but there's the books, obviously.
Hmm.
I offer one-on-one sessions
Okay.
like 1 hour sessions.
Mhm.
I have a 26 session private training for couples. I have a few
Yeah.
couples that go to that
Mhm.
training. And we have a final online training, which is starting on Sunday. And
Yeah.
people can still join the first 3, 4 weeks or so. They will have to do catch-up sessions. And that's a
Okay.
26-week training of the
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah. I'm a
And
part
then
of that.
maybe I will do a workshop every here
Mm.
now and then,
Okay.
sign up for my mailing list. I may
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
there's also other people like you, who are
Mhm.
trained in my work,
Hmm.
and they are good resources.
Yeah, I'm also joining that 26-week online workshop, like which
Yeah,
is starting day after tomorrow.
yeah,
Really looking forward to it and mastering this integral relationship model. So, Martin, thank you once again. It was really an inspiring conversation, and like we look forward to having you again on our podcast. Thank you very
yeah.
much.
Thank you for carrying forward the work as I
Yeah.
as I go into retirement.
Wow.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you for joining us for this first episode of Mindful Living with Neil. I am sure that the insights shared by Martin have sparked new ideas which will help you to bring more mindfulness and awareness to your relationships. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your thoughts or comments below so we can address them in future episodes. If you like this episode, share it with your friends or family members who might benefit from it. Join us next time as we explore more such interesting topics about mental health, spirituality, and personal growth with more such inspiring guests. Until then, stay mindful, stay connected, and remember every relationship starts with you.